The Lord is my shepherd, I have what I need. He lets me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He renews my life. He leads me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even when I go through the darkest valley, I fear no danger, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Only goodness and faithful love will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord as long as I live. Those are God's eternal words. Psalm 23 is quite possibly the most comforting thing in the Bible, but it gets even richer when we think about the surrounding context. Psalm 23 is nestled between Psalm 22, which talks about Jesus' suffering and ultimate vindication, rising from the dead, and his praises for having went to the cross. And then Psalm 24 is his return and all the worship that's going to take place at the return of the King of Glory. And in between it is this quiet psalm. So you got these two mountainous occasions on each side, and then you got this little pocket of calm. It's the shepherd psalm. And I think if Psalm 22 is the what, Jesus dying and raising from the dead for the forgiveness of sins, and Psalm 24 is the why, because of the glory that awaits for him, or awaited him in his kingdom when it's all ultimately done, then Psalm 23 is the who. The one who reigns supreme, the one who suffered, is the one who cares for souls like a shepherd. He's a shepherd, a good shepherd. David, who wrote this psalm, was a shepherd himself before he became king. And David was a good shepherd. David took good care of his sheep. We know he fought off bears and lions with primitive weaponry. He laid down his life for the sheep with like a slingshot. King David was a good shepherd as a boy. And David viewed God as his shepherd, which meant that David viewed himself like one of the sheep. It's humbling to think ourselves as sheep, but over and over and over in the Bible, God's people are compared to or likened to his sheep, his flock of sheep, his herd of sheep. I'm sorry, there's no football teams marching onto the field under the banner of a sheep, a fluffy white sheep. It's just not the animal. The Rams are not sheep per se. They're sheep that are just sitting there in the pasture, good for nothing but eating and getting sheared. And sheep are interesting creatures. I read a book exactly 15 years ago. I had just become a Christian. It was on this psalm, and it was by a pastor, author who had previously been a shepherd and had cared for sheep. And one of the chapters is called the Shepherd's Psalm, I believe. And in one of the chapters, he talks about how much work caring for sheep is. And he talks about how long they gotta graze for at least 8 hours a day, and they gotta have a mixed, clovers and mixed greens. They got to have a special diet. And you got to be able to identify each of your sheep so that you know what kind of special care each sheep needs, because they get worms, they get problems with their teeth, they get abscesses, gut bloating, they get arthritis, and everything you could think of that a human gets, sheep get, practically. But they can't talk and tell you what's wrong. Not to mention predators constantly trying to pick off your sheep. So you're building fences, or you're sleeping with them, and then you got the social issues of bullying and things like that you got to stay on them about. It's no small task taking care of sheep. And David, like I said, was a good shepherd. He would have done what was necessary to take care of his sheep, and he knew that God was a good shepherd. And you think, okay, a small flock would be a lot. 50 would be a lot. 100? You got to do their hooves. You got to shear them once a year. 1,000,000? God has billions. And he's caring for each one of us. He is amazing. David knew how much he needed God's care. If we look back at David's life, you think about it, God kept David safe through some brutal battles. He kept David and allowed David to kill the giant Goliath with that slingshot. David had Saul, basically king and country, chasing after him for years, hiding out. David had the FBI, the CIA, the DEA, and every other American organization, every other acronym under the sun, hunting him for years, and over and over and over, at the last minute, God would deliver him from being snatched up by these guys. David knew he had a good shepherd watching over his soul, watching over his life. In John chapter 10, Jesus is on the scene, and Jesus says these words, "I am the good shepherd. My sheep know me, and I know them." And Jesus didn't step on the scene till 1,000 years after David went through his stuff. But what we know is that the David that was worshiping in Psalm 23, the Lord, capital L-O-R-D, the covenant-making, covenant-keeping Yahweh, the God of the Israelites, we know that when Jesus stepped on the scene, he said, "That guy, that's me. I am one with the Father. I am the one who said I am to Moses at the burning bush." And so now we know that Jesus is the shepherd of souls. So I'm going to ask you another question. Do you know the good shepherd? Are you one of his sheep? He said, "My sheep hear my voice, they know me, and I know them." Can you answer that? Are you one of his sheep? If there was a football field, would you march out under that banner? And is Jesus leading you, or are you still leading you like Frank Sinatra? The richest, most powerful men in the world are still like sheep in the grand scheme of things. Men and women. In the grand scheme of things, we are as helpless as sheep, you guys. Kobe Bryant dies of a helicopter crash. Princess Di, car crash. JFK, cut down with Secret Service all around. Steve Jobs dies of cancer at 56. We are as helpless as sheep in the grand scheme of things. We all die, we all get sick, we all experience loss. The only question is, and the question that they hopefully answered is do you have a shepherd? Because wherever they're all at right now, the only thing that would matter is if they had a shepherd. Because they're somewhere else right now. And it wouldn't be a news flash for me to say we're all going to be somewhere else too. So the only question is do we have a shepherd for our soul? Because where we go, we do not know. But the shepherd of our soul does. This is why Jesus did the unthinkable, and Jesus walked through the valley of the shadow of death, the darkest valley. When he went to the cross, when he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me from the cross? He wasn't being poetic. He was literally experiencing the darkest darkness of history, being separated from the Trinity for the first time in all of eternity, the light of life. And he went into the grave and didn't come out for 3 days. He experienced the darkest of dark. We don't even know. I don't even think we could handle knowing what he experienced. And I'm not talking the physical. I'm talking about having perfect oneness with God for all of eternity, and then all of a sudden that's just gone. Isolation, gone. But I know this. He did it because he was the only one who could do it. He did it because he knew death couldn't hold him. And I know who he did it for. He did it for his sheep. He didn't do it for the goats. You can say he did it for all, but he did it for his sheep. Those who would allow him to be their shepherd. Personal story, before I was a Christian, I went through some pretty dark valleys. Prisons, depression, drug addiction, dark stuff. After I became a Christian, I looked back at those times in those valleys, and it's like I can almost visually see Jesus standing there with me. Like he was always there, guiding me, protecting me, leading me, even when I didn't know I needed it. It's the only way I would have made it through. And I don't know what state you are in sitting here right now. I don't know mentally, spiritually, emotionally. I don't know where you're at today. You might be in a very, very dark valley right now. But I know this. If you've got breath in your lungs, you're not alone. There is a shepherd watching you. He's watching over you. And all you got to do is turn to him. And he will take you in. He will care for you. He will lead you to green pastures. He will put you beside quiet waters. He will restore your soul. He will prepare a table in the presence of your enemies for you. I lived in Alaska for a long time after I became a Christian, and a long time as an ex-validated gang member. And where I would go to the store, guess what? I would see people. But somehow, God prepared a table before me in the presence of my enemies, and not a single hair on my head was disturbed by any of the drama. And I know for a fact it was the Lord, because if you looked at my life before, my hair would have been real messed up. God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, Jesus Christ, full of grace and truth, to experience the judgment, condemnation, the shame that we deserve from walking away from a good God and going about it the Frank Sinatra way. Because of how good the God is, us turning away from him says that we would much rather do it our way, no matter what that means. And God warned us about that. But he loves us so much that, like a good shepherd, he left the 99 to come find each one of us here. Then we know that we have another opportunity right here to once again submit and follow Jesus and to delight in the truths of his word. I want to say this: if he has found you, it's time to follow him. It's time to follow. Sheep like to wander. Don't wander. There's trouble out there. Plenty of trouble.